I now invite the Honourable MP to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to offer my contribution to the debate on the budget for 2026 under the theme Toward Vision 75, Powering Progress Through People's Participation and Innovation. I know the theme, it's an interesting theme, and I will have some comments on it later. It talks to inclusiveness and people's participation, critical for the development of any country. So, Speaker, before I start, I want to commend my good friend, Mr. Adrian Joseph. I'm very happy and proud to see him sitting where he is as acting clerk of the Parliament. We've worked together for many years, and I do know his capacity, and I want to congratulate him on his ascendancy, I would call it, to the throne of acting clerk of the Parliament. So make me proud, Mr. Joseph. Mr. Speaker, let me begin by acknowledging what any fair-minded observer will concede. The minister has presented a document that speaks to ambition. The numbers are impressive. Total expenditure nearly $2 billion, claims of transformation, and a litany of initiatives across every sector. And yes, some genuine progress in certain areas. But, Mr. Speaker, the people of Grenada, Khartoum, and Petit Martinique did not send us here to applaud rhetoric. They sent us here to scrutinize, to question, and to ensure that their hard-earned tax dollars deliver results in what is being discussed at the kitchen table, all in the spirit of our collective effort. And I repeat, all in the spirit of our collective effort to ensure the development of this land we all in this room call our home and we all love dearly. Much has already been said on the issues, Mr. Speaker, on several of the issues, so I will confine myself to some specific areas. Mr. Speaker, across this land, families are talking about issues. Will they be able to send their kids to school well-nourished because of the high price of foods in the supermarket? Worried about if they fall sick? Will they be able to pay the medical bills? Worried about the price of medication and its availability? Worried about what will happen to them if they lose their jobs? This is the discussion at the kitchen table in every house across this land. Mr. Speaker, that is why we are here today, to ensure that we address the concerns of the people, make critical comments, and surely to make recommendations where appropriate. So permit me to examine this budget through the lens of what actually matters to ordinary Grenadians. Mr. Speaker, let me address a matter that has come up several times in this House. The minister boasts of a 6.2% GDP growth in 2025 and projects 4.1% in 2026. He also celebrates falling unemployment to 7.5%, calling it the lowest level in our modern economic history. His words. Let me address this issue directly. Mr. Speaker, the unemployment rate only counts the people actively seeking employment. If you tried for 2 years and you heard nothing, that you simply lost hope, you stop looking, you vanish from the statistics. You are no longer employed. You become economically inactive. In other words, as far as the persons doing the statistics and the analysis, you actually disappear. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask the minister to table not just the unemployment rate, but the labor participation rate, which actually tells a story. Let us see how many Grenadians simply stopped looking because a falling participation rate indicates shrinking hope on the part of people rather than expanding opportunity. Mr. Speaker, there are modifiers in all these statistical analysis, and in this case, if you look at the numbers over the last 3 years, there has been a substantial drop, a reduction in the persons actively soliciting jobs. Over the last 3 years, from 2022 to 2025, 2,000 people have decided that they no longer have any hope. They will drop out of sight, disappear, and therefore, because of this shrinking hope, the statistics tell a particular story. In other words, unemployment is apparently low because less and less people are in the workforce. There's a figure called the participation rate in the workforce. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, when you stop counting the discouraged, when you stop counting the defeated, and the disillusioned, of course, your numbers improve. You could achieve zero unemployment tomorrow if enough people stopped trying to find jobs. So, Mr. Speaker, the numbers and the stats are there. The numbers actually indicate and should be alarming because what it indicates is that the low unemployment rate referred to by members on the other side is actually a rise in hopelessness among particularly our young people. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of unemployment, the minister speaks of youth unemployment falling from 42% to 20.2%. 1 in 5 young Grenadians looking for work cannot find work. That is not transformation. That is a generation still waiting for opportunity. Mr. Speaker, it therefore means that there is a lot of work to be done. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of health care, the minister devotes considerable attention to health and wellness. Project Polaris, National Health Insurance, partnerships with Mount Sinai, they sound wonderful. But let me remind this House that what I know from serving in cabinet, healthcare is not about groundbreaking. It is not about future hospitals. It is about whether a pensioner in Tempe, in Granbrook, wherever, can get her medication today and can afford the medication if it is available. Mr. Speaker, what we hear of is consultations. Let me remind this House, Mr. Speaker, that the minister said with respect to NHI that they will move decisively on national health insurance in 2026. Mr. Speaker, this government has been in office for 3 years. How long must our people wait for universal health care? They promised a financing model, a legislative framework, and stakeholder consultations. In other words, more studies, more reports, more delays. This despite the fact that the previous government had done most of the work with respect to NHI. Why is NHI taking so long? Meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, the combined allocation for health and mental health is EC $1.5 million. Yet we know from past experience that millions in healthcare funding have gone unspent, and we've heard about unspent funding in this House over the last several days. The minister himself has admitted in previous years that clinics operate without medicine and mobile units sit idle. What concrete mechanisms are there to ensure these allocations reach patients, not just ministry accounts? With respect to Project Polaris, The minister describes Project Polaris as a flagship of healthcare transformation. Yet nowhere in this budget do we find total project cost or a comprehensive financing plan. We hear about concessional loans, equity injections, and philanthropic contributions. We hear about cabinet ministers donating a month's salary. But do we hear a number? How much will this hospital actually cost? And where will that money come from? Symbolic gestures do not build hospitals. The groundbreaking is promised for 2026, barring unforeseen circumstances. Mr. Speaker, in the Caribbean, unforeseen events are the only events we can actually foresee. Hurricane season comes once a year. What is the contingency? What is the timeline? When will Grenadians actually walk through the doors of this new hospital facility? We have no opposition to the construction of a new hospital. But as with all the projects undertaken by government, in the name of the people, there must be transparency and accountability. And as you stated in the theme of the budget, the people must participate. Your words, Minister. We acknowledge the government's plan to import nurses from Africa to address the urgent staffing needs. That is commendable. We commend that. But it is not enough, and it shows a problem that we are having difficulties keeping our professionals in Grenada. Grenada has a world-class medical school, a world-class institution, which produces highly trained doctors, nurses, and allied professionals. We must leverage this national asset to strengthen our healthcare system rather than continue to lose talent. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of agriculture, there's an allocation of 40.5 million for agriculture, food, and nutrition security, and this deserves scrutiny. We still import approximately 80% of what we eat. Every year, hurricanes and other events disrupt our food chain, our supply chain, and sends grocery prices through the roof. The minister speaks of spice planting programs and livestock development and other necessary projects. These are necessary, but they are incremental measures, not transformation. The sector needs fundamental structural change, not annual allocations that sound impressive but fail to move the needle. Where is a comprehensive food security plan strategy that reduces import dependence by 10%, 20%, or 30% over a defined timeline? Where are the targets? Where is the accountability? The minister acknowledges delays in the marketing board, the MNIB, delays in the reform of the MNIB, admitting the audited financial statements dated back to 2020. Mr. Speaker, the minister tells us expressions of interest for MNIB were formally issued and negotiations will commence before the end of February 2026. 3.5 years into their term, Mr. Speaker, they are now just asking who might be interested in the MNIB. This is not transformation. This is procrastination. MNIB is a critical entity in addressing the concerns in this sector. The original mandate of the MNIB in finding markets, in delivering affordable inputs, are critical to the sector. It is a priority. What are our priorities, and why is MNIB not treated as such? Mr. Speaker, the budget maintains support for agriculture, food security, and the marine industry. This gives us fertile ground to demand full modernization of agriculture, climate-smart irrigation, farm access roads, storage and processing facilities, support for agro-processing and value-added production, and guaranteed fair pricing and market access. Such strategic measures will reduce import dependency, stabilize domestic food prices, and shield Grenadians from global supply chain shocks as we have received in the past. With global uncertainty, inflation, and external shocks, our families remain vulnerable. We must demand additional measures. For example, a strategic reserve for essential goods, incentives to boost local production, support for small farmers and fishers, stabilized prices for staples, and proactive protections against cost of living spikes. We welcome the measures that you've already indicated, but submit that these are not sufficient. Mr. Speaker, it is time we confront a fundamental question. Do we know what it takes to feed ourselves for a day, a month, or a year? Have we assessed our real capacity to sustain this nation in the face of external shocks that we always face, whether from escalating trade wars, disruptions in global supply chains, or reduced access to international markets? These are not abstract possibilities. They are emerging features of a turbulent global landscape. Where is the data that tells us of our vulnerability, our domestic production capacity, and our resilience thresholds? And where is the strategic plan to deepen regional cooperation, including reliable ferry links within the OECS and the CARICOM, so that intra-regional trade can serve as a buffer, Mr. Speaker, if global supply chain fails? Where is the information on this? Mr. Speaker, these are serious questions for a serious time, and we must answer them with urgency and clarity. Mr. Speaker, EC 4.5 million spread across the entire sector is not transformative. It's maintenance. No mention of the Youth and Agriculture Program, no mention of the Land Bank Project, but I spend no time on that. I'll have conversations with the Minister on that to see what information is possible. It was mentioned, but it has not made the kind of strides that we anticipated would have been made 3.5 years after being in government. Mr. Speaker, on jobs and the private sector, the government speaks of Youth Empowerment Agency with EC $15 million allocation. They promise to unify programs like Empower and Elevate Her. But what we need are concrete job creation pathways. Where is the commitment to apprenticeship where young Grenadians earn while they learn real skills? Our school system must be modernized with a curriculum rooted in digital literacy, critical thinking, and global readiness. Vocational and technical training must be made available to every young person, whether they live in St. Andrew, Carriacou, St. George. And we must establish innovation hubs, Mr. Speaker, digital labs, and research spaces across the country so that every young Grenadian has access to the tools that drive modern opportunity. Mr. Speaker, our young people are not waiting for tomorrow. They are leaders today. And if we give them the training, the technology, and the environment to innovate, they will build industries that will define the future. The capacity of our young people is immense. Coding, robotics, artificial intelligence, fintech literacy, digital agriculture, and cybersecurity must be fully integrated into our education and workforce systems. We must accompany these reforms, Mr. Speaker, with youth business grants, startup incubation programs, and structured mentorship networks that connect our local talent with the global diaspora. And we have people in the diaspora like Nicholas Braffett and others. But, Mr. Speaker, empowerment must also include economic security. And that is why we proposed a groundbreaking youth housing grant program. We propose $30,000 for a single young person and $50,000 for young couples seeking to purchase or build their first home. This is an investment in stability and wealth creation. When young people have a home and a stake in the economy, they begin to build long-term financial strength. They are more likely to invest, to start businesses, and to contribute meaningfully to national development. This is not a handout. It is a foundation for generational wealth and a stabilizing anchor for our society. It has been done in other countries, Mr. Speaker, so we know it can work with proper planning and budgeting. Mr. Speaker, my own family, my father and mother grew up poor. They purchased a house. They used that house to send their kids to school. They used that house to purchase other businesses. And today, all of the kids have graduated from university and they are pursuing their own wealth creation. The purchase of a home and the assistance of the government will help an entire generation to develop. That is what we believe. We have already seen what our youth can do when given even a small space to flourish. Our creative professionals, musicians, producers, designers, content creators are earning a living and global recognition even in the absence of a developed innovation ecosystem. Imagine what is possible when we build that ecosystem deliberately and consistently. Mr. Speaker, small businesses are important. This is where, Mr. Speaker, a lot starts. Where is the red tape being cut for small businesses? Where is the Grenadian First policy ensuring our people are hired on projects built with their tax dollars? Ask any small contractor trying to buy cement or clear a container. This government talks ease but delivers delays. The bureaucracy that was supposed to be streamlined remains as cumbersome as ever. The permits that were supposed to be expedited still take months. The financing that was supposed to flow to small businesses remain locked behind paperwork and connections. The minister celebrates GIDC generating 278 investment leads and 72 approved projects valued at 331 million, projecting 3,748 jobs. Projecting, Mr. Speaker, not created, not employed, just projected. How many of these jobs actually materialized? How many went to Grenadians versus imported labor? This government has a pattern of announcing projections without ever reporting the actuals. Mr. Speaker, the ministers speak proudly of completing the pilot phase of Project 500 with 17 model homes at Dunfermline. After 3.5 years, 17 homes is the pilot. Grenada faces a housing crisis. Young couples cannot afford to buy or rent. Families live in substandard conditions, and this government's flagship response is 17 homes as a pilot, with a promised second phase. The government's housing fund of 50 million sounds significant until you realize it relies on allocations from the National Lottery Authority, the Development Bank, and proceeds from selling existing units. This is recycled money, not new investment. The private sector partnerships mentioned remain vague. Who are these strategic partners? What commitments have they made? When will shovels hit the ground? That is a conversation in the kitchen, on the kitchen table. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of fiscal management, perhaps most concerning is a casual admission that rules and targets under the Fiscal Resiliency Act are further suspended in 2026. The minister assures us of steadfast commitment to sound fiscal management, while asking us to trust that this government will return to compliance once, his words, once conditions permit. Mr. Speaker, FRAC exists because past governments could not discipline themselves. If this government can suspend fiscal rules in 2024, 2025, and 2026, citing Hurricane Beryl, what precedent are we setting? When will conditions ever permit fiscal discipline? The overall deficit is projected at $309.8 million, financed primarily through an $257.3 million drawn down from government deposits. In plain language, we are spending down our savings. How much remains in the tank? What happens if and when the deposits run dry? These are questions that are being asked. Your role, your responsibility is to answer the questions when they're asked, not to get upset with the questions being asked. What this budget lacks, Mr. Speaker, beyond the specific allocations, it lacks several critical elements. One, it lacks honest statistics. We need to ensure that we have honest statistics presented to the people. It lacks accountability mechanisms. We hear about programs launched, initiative commenced, and projects advanced. But where are the key performance indicators? Where is the dashboard showing delivery against targets? And after 3.5 years of transformation, Grenada deserves metrics, not adjectives. We lack a credible plan to address the cost of living beyond temporary subsidies. The EC $47 million in relief measures is welcome. $47 million is a lot of money, and it is welcome. But subsidies are band-aids, not cures. What is the structural solution to electricity costs, food prices, and housing affordability? The budget lacks meaningful engagement with the private sector beyond cheerful statistics. Mr. Speaker, small businesses, the true engine of employment, need more than duty exemptions. They need access to capital, streamlined regulations, and a government that treats them as partners, not supplicants. What Grenadians deserve, Mr. Speaker, is a government that is transparent. Grenadians also deserve a government that connects the dots. A government, when healthcare promises are delayed, explain why. When housing targets are missed, acknowledge it. Jobs, food security, and healthcare are not separate line items. They are interconnected realities on every single kitchen table. If you do not have a job, you cannot afford food prices. If food costs crush your paycheck, you cannot afford medicine. If you are sick and cannot work, you lose your job. This is the cycle that traps our families in poverty. And this budget, for all its impressive allocations, does not break that cycle. What we need is work that pays and stays, real jobs with real wages that keep our young people home in Grenada. Not projections and leads, but actual employment. Not falling employment rates because people leave the workforce. We have proposed a national human resource reset, a full survey of every single person in the job market, working or not working, to find out exactly what are their jobs and career aspirations, to ascertain their skill level, and then develop training and opportunity pathways fueled by policies that will create avenues for investment, engagement, and employment that suits our national human resource. A national human resource reset. And as I said in another forum, we don't have gold. We don't have diamonds. We may get some oil, but that may take some doing and some time. What we do have is people. We need to train them for the economy we have. Mr. Speaker, we also need to ensure that our youth get a start in building their families and creating generational wealth. And that is why we propose the $35,000 and the $50,000 grant to young people for purchasing their first home. We need food that feeds us, a serious reduction in import dependence with measurable targets and agricultural transformation that makes farming viable for the next generation. And that is why the procrastination with the MNIB is inexcusable. The marketing board is a critical element in the transformation of the agricultural sector. We need healthcare that reaches you, not hospitals promised for groundbreaking in some future year, but clinics stocked with medicine today, not national health insurance in development, but coverage of people can access now. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of foreign affairs, the global landscape is undergoing profound transformation, and Grenada must reposition itself with clarity, maturity, and strategic foresight. Around us, the world is shifting in ways that directly affect our food security, our economy, our sovereignty, and our long-term stability. Mr. Speaker, Grenada cannot afford to respond to these shifts with passivity or outdated diplomatic assumptions. Our foreign policy cannot be transactional or myopic. We need a foreign policy that is deliberate, forward-looking, and rooted in the protection of our national interests. We must diversify our international partnerships. We welcome the efforts being made in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in that regard. In Africa, in Europe, and yesterday, the Minister for Foreign Affairs indicated many of these, and those are welcome, and we believe it will work and is working in the interest of our country, so we welcome that. We must deepen these engagements with emerging markets, strengthen South-South cooperation, and create new bilateral and multilateral channels that support investment, trade, and technology transfer. As we have expanded in recent years under the leadership of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, we have expanded our diplomatic footprint in Africa, and that is well commendable. We welcome the other initiatives mentioned by the Minister for Foreign Affairs. But also, Mr. Speaker, there's a structural issue that has to be addressed. We must modernize our foreign service. We must establish a foreign service. I know there were proposals made years ago while I was Foreign Minister, so there are actual proposals there, including a separate building for the Foreign Service so that we can give our diplomats the tools, training, and mandate to navigate this rapidly changing international system. They must be our eyes and ears in a world where the decisions far away from our capitals can reshape the lives of our farmers, our fishermen, our fisherwomen, our students, and our workers. So the development of a foreign service is something that must be considered and actively pursued. And, Mr. Speaker, in foreign affairs, we must defend our sovereignty with wisdom and balance. Grenada must never become a pawn in geopolitical tensions. Whether dealing with global powers or international institutions, we must negotiate on terms that protect our people, our laws, our sovereignty, and our future. Mr. Speaker, the world is shifting. Our survival depends on the quality of our diplomacy. Our prosperity depends on the strength of our alliances, and our sovereignty depends on the clarity of our vision. Mr. Speaker, I want to raise some other issues before I move on to the issue of the theme, as I indicated I would speak of earlier. Mr. Speaker, just a comment. As I represent young people in the courts every day, and not only the persons charged, but I represent the mothers, the fathers, the families, everybody concerned, it has become abundantly clear to all of us that there's a lot that needs to be done, particularly for purposes of rehabilitation. Mr. Speaker, I heard mentioned earlier in the debate, halfway home. That is something that is critical because, Mr. Speaker, our prison is full. But not only is our prison full, our prison is an incubator for crime. Rehabilitation is the furthest thing from our prison system, Mr. Speaker, so we need halfway homes and other institutions. The juvenile facility is a welcome development, but, Mr. Speaker, it has not served its purpose. I won't go into details here, but we need to look at the juvenile center to ensure it is doing what it was set out to do. Mr. Speaker, we also need to establish mentoring programs. You know, when I go to court, I see many mothers, many aunts, many grandmothers. I hardly see the fathers. I hardly see the uncles. We must develop, and the state has a responsibility to do that, not only the families, because at the end of the day, what happens in crime affects all of us. Mr. Speaker, the drug rehabilitation facility. We need to, and I know it was mentioned, and I know it's put on the burner down the road again, the Carlton home. Mr. Speaker, we need to get, apart from the Carlton home is essential in dealing with the issue of drug use. Not only locking people up, Mr. Speaker, I have seen people come through the court system this week, next week, the week after, because of drug addiction. So we need to address it urgently. But also, Mr. Speaker, the mentally ill. We need to find a secure facility for mentally ill inmates. You cannot send a mentally ill inmate to Her Majesty's prisons because he or she becomes a danger to him or herself and a danger to the other inmates. And it may leave the government with lawsuits that will cost millions of dollars because of that. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge, and again, we are here to make critical comment, but we are also here to make recommendation. I urge the state to find a secure facility for mentally ill patients because it will end up costing the taxpayer millions of dollars. In addition to that, the prisons is the last place you want to send a mentally ill patient if you expect him to become any better. So I want to urge the government on that issue to look at that because that is a critical element in the courts when we try to deal with the young people and try to pursue the task of rehabilitation of offenders. Mr. Speaker, Vision 75 and people's participation. I said at the beginning I'll come and comment about it. I love the words uttered by my friend, the Minister of Finance. We have faith in the creativity and the capacity of our people. Faith in our own collective potential. You said, Mr. Minister, member, progress has never been imposed from the top down. You said we must have the active participation of our people, not just people of one tribe or people of another tribe, active participation of all of our people. And as I was listening to you, I was looking at the coat of arms. It said, ever conscious of God. And maybe we can look at it while I read it. Don't be afraid. Ever conscious of God, we aspire, build and advance. And what are the next words? As one people. Now, I'm not sure if it's saying we advance as one people or maybe we can only advance as one people, but it is my submission, the latter. We will only advance if we approach our development as one people. And the member said that here, and I assume he meant not just one group of people, all of our people. But it's clear to me that the terms consultation and people participation are used by politicians without there being any real people-centered governance. And I'm not blaming anybody. Please, don't become defensive. What mechanism is there actually for people's participation in the budget, in the development, in decision-making? What mechanism is there? Is it the mechanism every 5 years where you go and you slap your X next to the person you like the most? Vision 75 and the National Development Plan are the two things that are used and bandied about a lot to indicate we have a plan. But, Mr. Speaker, if you ask the average Grenadian, as I have done, and this must be, it is a fact, don't believe I'm attacking anybody, that most Grenadians, and I ask people all the time, put up your hands if you've read the National Development Plan 2035 or read Vision 75? And they all answer no. And I'm certain that the majority of the members in this House have not read at least the 2035 Development Plan. And there's a reason for that. I know you'd say that. You see that coming already. I know you'd say that. The point is this, and there's a reason for that. I am not blaming the people. I am blaming the way it was done. Because 2035 Development Plan and Vision 75 are just used when we choose to use it. It has not been embedded, discussed, or in our communities because the leaders of the country, I fear that they fear the true power of the people. That is my position. It is not because of your fault of not reading. You can all read. We can all read. Everybody here can read. But how many have read it is a question we must ask. We need to make some structural changes in the way we do governance. And I urge you to listen. Make some structural changes in the way we do governance to ensure real participation. In fact, our Constitution provides for it. If you look at Carriacou and Pitima, I think, and I heard my member yesterday, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We had a lovely conversation yesterday about it. It says that Carriacou and Pitima, I think, must have a local government mechanism. But despite the efforts of MPs on both sides, my good friend George Prime has fought for this. In fact, when I was in the NDC government, we did do a lot of consultation, and we did develop a policy on it. In fact, I have here with me the document created by Professor McIntosh that I urge everybody to read, because it doesn't only talk about local government, it talks about what real democracy means. That is what we are talking about. My dear friend Elvin Nimrod of the NNP, he wanted it too, and my, of blessed memory, and my good friend Anselm B. Clouden, I think he calls himself, my good friend who once advocated for separation of Carriacou because of this issue of no local government. I welcome the announcement that the legislation is going to be brought before the Parliament. I really do. In fact, I heard it after I pursued my intention to discuss that matter in Parliament. Because we must include the provision in our Constitution that gives power to the people. All the other provisions are talked about, not the one that gives the people power. Mr. Speaker, but I also believe that the time has come for us to take, not only with reference to Carriacou, and the member for Carriacou said it yesterday, but it must be looked at in the context of the entire country. And you know, I heard you say the legislation is coming, but please don't do it in the way the politicians do it. Don't send it top down. Bring it up from the people. Give it to the people. The people are wiser than we believe. Just bring it to the people. How you do it, we can discuss. And maybe we need to establish a bipartisan committee in a parliament to discuss such a fundamental issue of governance rather than leaving it to one tribe, because people will believe this belongs to that tribe, so I am not touching it. The tribal politics has become deep, and I worry. I know most of you are young politicians. Please, don't ingest that gene too early in your career. I believe, Mr. Speaker, there needs to be more involvement of people in decision-making and more accountability on the part of politicians. When we say people's participation, it will not mean the people of one tribe at any given time, but the people of all tribes. When we talk about consultation today, we talk about a meeting where one tribe assembles and the people are told what is happening and the people stand up and applause. No, we need deep, organic consultation with the people where the people's voices are really heard and the people are able not only to listen, but to have their say. I believe that this issue of people participation is a development issue. It is a development issue. It's not an issue of politics. We can politicize it if we wish. But it's an issue of involving all of our people, because we already have a limited amount of people. When we leave these halls, brothers and sisters, we all tend to agree on what development means. But we believe that by coming to the Parliament and fighting each other, we show the people that we're bad and we can fight and win something. There's nothing to win except the development of a country. I've been in these halls 23 years. I have been here a long time. And I've been on your side, I've been on this side. So I know there are good people there and there are good people here. And this idea that when you sit there, you must be pelting shots across here and I must be pelting shots. No, there must be spaces where we come together. Because how can I tell the people, the young people, that they should not fight each other when that is all we do? Look at the anger, some anger that's been developing in our societies because of that. We set the tone. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think that's a 15-minute indication. Thank you. So, Mr. Speaker, I believe that our governance structure needs to be looked at. I call on the Parliament to establish a bipartisan committee to deal with the issue that was raised by a member from Carriacou that I welcome, an issue which seeks to implement in Carriacou a constitutional provision that has been there for years, but also that it should do what he says, which is expand it to look at the possibility of such a provision for Grenada. Remember, local government existed before, and the reason it was moved was twofold. One, they said it was too expensive, but I believe it's more expensive not to have it because of bad decisions being made for communities without community involvement. But secondly, the politicians at the top got fearful of the politicians in the local communities because they were getting too ambitious. Those were the two reasons that local government was moved, but I think the reason we should have it is involving the people in our development process. Mr. Speaker, before I close, let me just thank the people of the town of St. George for their support over the years. It was a little bit disappointing, though, when I heard all the projects, and tell me if I'm wrong very early, all the projects, the Ministry of Infrastructure, maybe the Prime Minister will tell us what is happening with our project in River Road. It seems as though it has stayed so long it has gone off the radar because I didn't hear it. The project is not complete. We need our bridges and we need our road. So please let us know what is happening. If you did mention it and you want to bite off my head, please don't. But the people of the town of St. George, some people called me and said, Mr. David, what? They're not fixing the road anymore. They're not completing the project. Please give us an update. But not only give us an update, Mr. Speaker. You made a promise last budget. This time, make a promise, but let us fulfill that promise to get that road done. And the truth is, the fact that it's incomplete is dangerous. There are areas, gaps in the wall, where the bridges are supposed to be repaired. I know the Prime Minister knows that causes water to still come over. We don't want to wait until somebody dies in order to complete that. Mr. Speaker, all of the issues I raised earlier apply to the people of the town of St. George. Too many times, constituents come to me and they say, listen, I need some money to buy some medication. They can't afford the medication expensive. And then I say, are you taking your medication? And they say, you know what, I'm supposed to take a tablet every day, but I'm taking it every 2 days or every 3 days because I can't afford it. So the issues that touch and concern the whole nation touches and concerns the people of the town of St. George, sometimes doubly, because cost of food, for example, I know there are many members here from the rural communities. If prices go up, you go and you have a block of tree behind your house or you have a breadfruit tree. The people of the town of St. George, unfortunately, is not an agricultural community. And I know there are other constituencies similarly. When food prices go up, they are affected more than people in the rural communities because they have no way of going in the backyard and picking two breadfruit or going and pick some blogger and get things done. So the cost of living issues I raised hit the people of the town of St. George very seriously because we are not an agricultural community. So I want to thank the people of the town of St. George for the engagement and the support. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I will not oppose this budget for the sake of opposition. Where there's genuine progress, I acknowledge it, I support it. Some infrastructure improvements took place. Some excellent infrastructure improvements, very visible. The recovery from Hurricane Beryl, particularly in Carriacou, shows that the government can mobilize when forced to mobilize by a hurricane. They can do it when it's necessary. So let us get it done. Let us treat every day as a hurricane and get things done. There still seems to be an issue with implementation. I know that there's been attempts to improve it. I've had conversations with some friends on the issue of implementation to see what mechanisms need to be put in place to ensure implementation. Mr. Speaker, the notion that things are happening, though, does not constitute transformation. Things can happen without any progress. Activity does not mean or equal achievement. Allocations do not equal outcomes, and falling unemployment statistics do not equal rising hope, when the reality may be people are simply stopping trying. The people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique are watching, not for slogans, not for ceremonies, not for budgets that read like campaign brochures. They are watching for results in their lives. When a young man in Grove, or a young woman in Grove sends out an application and hears nothing from the employer, she doesn't care about GDP growth. When a farmer in St. Patrick watches his crops rot because MNIB cannot get its accounts in order, he does not care about the transformation agenda. When a family in Carriacou still lives under some tarp 18 months after, they don't care about things happening. They care about results. They care about truth. They care about a government that sees them, hears them, and delivers for them. Mr. Speaker, until this government can show us all, that these impressive numbers translate to groceries on the table, jobs for our youth, healthcare where needed, and a future worth staying home for, I will continue to hold you accountable. Because this is why people sent us here. Not to applaud, but to ensure that government delivers for those who need it most. I will support the government in areas that I believe progress is made, but I will hold you accountable as I'm duty bound to do if I believe there are things we need to do. And while we may disagree on many issues, and I'm sure you disagree among yourselves on many issues, I hope you do, because that is how development is made. Let us remember, ever conscious of God, we aspire, build, and advance as one people. This is one house. I hate when you say the other side and the other side. It's only one side we have here. A group of Grenadians, some young, some not so young, who have been put here by the people to ensure a better life for them. We've not been put here to fight each other, although we are encouraging our people to believe that we come here to spar. We come here to see who wins. We come here to see who can fight more, who can cut each other on. When I see the deterioration of the debate on some days, it bothers me. Because as my brother Lennox indicated, we've been here a long time. We've been here from the 1970s, Mr. Andrews. And we have fought for years for a better Grenada. And I believe we can do it. But we can only do it, as the coat of arms says, if we see ourselves as one people, disagree with each other, but do it in a way that does not lead to fistfights. Because I've seen countries that is deteriorated slowly. I saw one, I don't know if it's the Philippines or somewhere, where a man jumped off a table and started beating up another man in parliament. And I don't want us to get there. So please, let us come together. Let us disagree, and let us disagree forcefully. But let us know that as one people, we can build this country. So I urge, and I want to make this practical recommendation again, that and I've said this from the day I entered the parliament, we need to establish some bipartisan committees so that we can begin to work together. And on the issue of local government, as said by my friend from Carriacou and Petit Martinique, that is one area, and I hope you, my dear brother, recommend that so that we can begin to work together to show the people, as one people, we can develop this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May God bless you.